All right, let's start to talk about holding out for A plus setups and what that is like. So here we have a 15-minute uptrend with the buyers in control, break of structure, and we make this peak and we start to retrace. So now we pick out a order block and we'll see if we can get a nice move into the order block. All this is still looking consistent with possibly A plus type of setup. And so that's the 15-minute. Okay, we have now come close to the order block, but we're not quite meeting it. So let's go and see what the 5-minute's been doing. Okay, 5-minute. That's the first break of structure. We're in uptrend. The buyers are in control. We make another break of structure, and we've seen this earlier where we make a new high. We start to retrace. So we're in the retracement stage. We find a order block, not quite at the bottom, but we found one more midway, and it is still in premium, or in not premium, but in OTE optimal. So we come in. Okay, we're looking good. We're looking good. We dip into here. So now we can go to the 1 minute. It's the same retracement. Same retracement coming in into the OTE area. And here we have a breaker structure to the downside and a change of character here. So this is it. We have reversed, which is what we're looking for. This is all still A plus, right? Because we're in a 5-minute order block and we're in OTE of this swing. Okay, so 1 minute we found the reversal. However, this is where for true A plus, I was expecting to find the OTE of this swing, but perhaps this is where we can loosen up on the A plus criteria. Once we have this reversal leg, we may just have to find the fair value gap and just kind of get in either right there where we just barely, actually the fair value gap is all the way out here like that, actually, on the 1 minute. So we may just have to get in, but where will be the stop? I mean, could we have gotten away with something like this, where this is the fair value gap? We don't really expect it to come all the way to OTE. This is just the, it makes me a little uncomfortable, but perhaps this is the entry. Once we had this change of character here, we just find this fair value gap and it taps into it, and we just have a 2-to-1 like this with a very conservative target, not asking for much, which is why we can afford to have such a tight stop, because the upside, we're not asking for much, and so we are giving ourselves a pretty good chance of hitting the take profit. So I was just thinking initially that the A plus would have been, a fair value gap here in the OTE of this leg. So, well, let's look on the 5-minute. 5-minute, we had the order block and we dip into it, and this is that 1 minute. This is this is this, and we have a 5-minute fair value gap, and we barely tap it. So we would have the equivalent green and pink box like this. I mean, could we get away with a stop like this and a fair value gap like this on the 5 minute and let it just dip in here and entry with the consideration for not missing the trade and not having adverse selection? Could we do this? And when we look at both, can we find some way to find the entry after this leg, which is this leg, which is the first leg of the resumption of the uptrend after dipping into OTE and dipping into this order block? We find the reversal with this change of character here. And could we find entry and 2-to-1 risk reward with this kind of stop and this kind of target? Could we do that? And would that still be considered A plus, or would A plus have been a fair value gap here on this first leg, fair value gap down here in OTE, and price just comes in so smoothly, just absolutely no brainer, get an entry here and with a stop that's more down here? Yeah, I think that would have been preferable, but how often are we really going to get that? And we did really just have the fair value gap. If we respect fair value gaps at all, if we think fair value gaps are real at all, we actually would have to do it this way and find that walk that very tight rope of finding the entry and still having enough room for stop, finding the entry here on the fair value gap here on the 1 minute, and the entry, and then walking that middle ground between having a stop that gives some room for breathing and while still allowing ourselves to get a very conservative take profit that has a decent chance of being hit, because we'd have to get through all of this. And so this take profit is somewhere around here below this previous support. Those are the considerations. We want a TP that's very easy to hit. So this whole video in summary is a look at what it's actually like to try to hit an A plus setup, including the breakout structure, the buyers in control, and then the retracement. All of this up to this point was all A plus. And then the entry, is this an acceptable entry? And we may just have to allow entries like this, where, I mean, this is a legitimate FVG, and FVGs are a very significant market footprint, institutional consideration. So perhaps this is the compromise. Perhaps this is where the A plus lives, is in this area. This may be an A, maybe a A minus, perhaps, because a A plus would have had just the easiest thing with the FVG down here in the OTE, and price comes down and just takes off. That would have been the most A plus plus, right? But is this a A plus, or is this a A, or is this a A minus? Somewhere around A to A minus, perhaps, because we do have the FVG. So enough rambling. The point of this video is to get some real practical practice and see what it really is like to hold out for absolute A plus, and how that experience feels. it didn't feel exactly A plus, but we may have to adjust our expectations and give more weight to the FVG here and just have to enter, because this leg may be coming in with a lot of momentum and we just might not get a deeper OTE retracement as far as the entry time frame.